Hey, everybody. Welcome back to My Big Fat Junk Drawer, the show about the junk we keep and the stories we tell about it. Today, I have a special guest, Jeremy, who brought something from his junk bowl. He doesn't have a drawer, but he has a bowl. Hi, Jeremy. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so my little junk bowl is a tiny little it's like a Japanese style rice bowl that I just drop things into. And currently I just have a couple pieces of flint that I picked up at High Banks and like a random key I found in a parking lot sitting in it.
Nice. So you said you had flint in there. So
Yeah.
do you know how to use flint to make fire?
Yeah, that's just something my parents kind of programmed into us when we were growing up. We spent a lot of time hiking and camping and hunting as a family. So it was just one of those skills my mom taught us, and I kind of enjoy using that when I can.
I know, Jeremy, you have a lot of cool hobbies. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you today is you are a framer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Tell me about how you got into framing and just tell me a little background about that.
I had an uncle that had a shop. He was a master carpenter, and he was my first introduction to that, but he didn't really enjoy it. My real first job where I was trained properly was working for an old store called Ben Franklin Crafts. I think they're still around, but there's none in Columbus, or at least in Ohio, as far as I know.
I've heard of that name, but I don't
Yeah.
think there are any anymore. Yeah.
And I worked in the art department, and I was totally scared to talk to people in general back then. I was like 17, 18, and just frightened of people. So their framer one day quit. She kind of stormed out, and my manager was like, "You're going to learn how to frame." And they kind of threw me into it from there. I kind of figured out what I could, and when they realized that I was a quick learner, they actually sent me to school to learn framing, which was pretty awesome.
That is
So I
pretty
learned how to
cool.
do it all properly.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was in high school, big into art, actually all the way back into like middle school. So when we had our own art shows at school, I would end up cutting mats for everyone just because I enjoyed doing stuff like that. And it just kind of all fell together into a career, I guess. I've been doing it for over 30 years now.
Wow. That's funny because Mike always says he likes to cut mats. That's really why, my husband, you guys kind of work together sometimes on framing. So
Yes.
yeah, very cool. So when they wanted you to do frames, did they mean like literally cut the frames and all of that out, or like pre-made frames from the get-go?
Back then it was chopping and joining the frames and cutting the mats. And back then too, like we didn't have computer systems or any of that. You were actually cutting everything by hand. We had a very specialized oval cutter for cutting oval mats and glass. And that was one of my favorite machines to work with, but they just don't use those these days.
Yeah. You have been framing for 30 years. Tell me some of your projects you've done. Like, what is your favorite framing project that you've worked on?
Oh man, there's been so many. And it's just the challenge of each individual item. Like I don't know. We do maybe 50 orders a week until we get up to Christmas, and then it gets to be insane. And just doing that for so long. But like autographed jerseys and stuff are always a blast to do. My favorite, and Micah, I think has seen this, was the World War II piece I did. And it was for, I believe the guy that brought it in, it was his grandfather's memorabilia or stuff from the war. And it included a map of his tour and like all kinds of medals and pins and, ribbons that he had earned and photographs of him meeting his wife for the first time when they got back, I think. I don't know the full story behind everything, but it was really fascinating to work on and just to see the history involved. And that's what I really like about that job, is seeing all those historical documents and just learning the history behind all the pieces that come in.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I imagine you have to take great care with these pieces. This is a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of money for people to put down for framing. So,
Yeah, and a lot of it is it's like it can't be replaced. It's, irreplaceable heirlooms, and it's stressful, but it also is super rewarding when you get something like that completed and to see the look on their face when, you unwrap it for them the first time. It's
yeah.
pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So, what is the largest thing you've ever done?
Well, that piece was one of the biggest, at
Hmm.
least for shadow boxes. Largest shadow box was 40 by 60 inches. It held a hockey stick.
Oh,
And that's the biggest we can do for just using a solid sheet of mat board for something.
yeah.
You can go a little bigger, but then you have to start piecing things together.
Yeah.
And then structurally, they don't always hold together well. But yeah, the hockey stick, it was a Blue Jackets thing. And this was, I want to say like 2019, 2018.
Hmm.
And it had just an insane amount of stuff. He only wanted the hockey stick, but I had to fit it in at an angle, and there was a whole bunch of negative space or empty space in around the hockey stick. So I had him bring in all kinds of stuff to fill it up. And I believe that piece went into his office like on Christmas Eve is when I finished it.
And I imagine sports are pretty huge on what
Yeah,
you do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mike wanted me to ask you, what's the worst, nastiest thing you've done?
He knows this one answer, I believe. It was Mike Tyson's boxing shorts. I believe like they were unwashed, autographed, unwashed and stuck in a bag or a plastic tub when they got to me. It was pretty potent.
That's gross.
But yeah, a lot of the jerseys and stuff that come in, like you can tell they're authentic when they come in stained and they have a smell to
Oh, gross. That
them.
would be foul. My hat's off to you, sir, for doing that. Too funny. So,
And that piece actually, the Tyson piece came back for me to fix something in it like a year or two later, and it still had that smell when I opened it up.
oh, gross. So, what does it consist of to actually have something framed? Like, I know for a lot of people, they want to have something framed, but they see like, how much it is. What exactly goes into framing a piece, and why is it expensive, and why is it worth it?
Well, I guess like the materials are the biggest expense. I mean, there is labor involved, but the biggest chunk of the price is going to be the glass or the glazing
Hmm.
and the frame itself. And then everything else kind of might equal those two together. And the rest is just the materials like your mats, the backing board, and then you got the labor that goes into putting it together. Those big, complicated pieces will be fairly expensive, mainly because the biggest chunk is the glass and then the frame, but the labor on top of doing something like that, like that World War II piece, took me probably a month to really design and figure out how everything was going to fit into the frame,
Hmm.
and then probably 2 months to build slowly over that time while I'm doing other orders around it. Those pieces I want to put as much attention into them as I can. So I do take a little longer to put those together than your average order.
Hmm.
But yeah, the biggest thing, like the biggest cost is generally the glass.
Yeah.
The glass we use is museum quality, so it's going to be a little more expensive than, standard picture framing glass. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think I got off track a little bit.
No.
Oh, okay.
That's good because I don't think a lot of people understand like how intricate that job is and how much work is put into it. And also, a lot of people come in, you're not only like putting glass and everything in it, but a lot of people don't even know like what color mat to choose
Yeah,
or like the frame texture or what would look right. But you also have done it so long that you're able to give that advice too.
yeah. And that's something, I've been doing it for so long, that's something I don't totally think about. When somebody lays down a piece, I kind of have an idea in my head already which frame and which mats I'm going to pull. Have a short conversation about where they're going to put it and kind of what look they were going for. And then I kind of meld what was in my head to what they want when I'm pulling stuff, and it just kind of comes naturally at this point. And that's one of the harder things for me to train somebody on, is choosing that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
just because it just kind of comes to me when a piece gets laid down. I just automatically kind of have a picture in my head as to which direction to go.
Yeah, I'd be one that I would be hard to train because my problem with like any kind of art or craft project is color choice and and I've talked about this on my on other podcasts before. For me, it's just picking the right thing to go with it is just difficult for me. So I appreciate someone who knows how to do that well.
Well, in my personal life, I am horrible at choosing like wall color to paint. And I've painted rooms multiple times in a weekend because I just can't be happy with it.
Maybe it's because it's not for you, so it's easier to pick out for somebody else. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where it comes
Yeah.
from. It's pretty funny. So, if someone is interested, say someone's in their garage and is like, I want to know how would a person start framing on their own? Like, what kind of materials would they need? What kind of stuff would they need to start just on their own? Not a business, but like just to get into that. What does it take?
I mean, the if they just have a few small pieces that they want to do themselves, it's actually pretty easy to do. You can buy ready-made frames that are already even have the mats in them. They'll be standard sizes, and most of the stuff that people have printed these days fit into a standard size.
Mm-hmm.
It's really like the odd sized pieces are more like concert posters or I don't know, like promotional stuff occasionally, like banners and things like that. But they even are selling frames on the, like standardized frames for like pennants and stuff now, and
Mm-hmm.
you can get shadow boxes. So you could definitely do it yourself. Now, like the difference between you doing it yourself and me doing it is I'm putting things together in such a way that it's not permanent. It's not going to damage the art. I'm not using adhesives or
Mm-hmm.
damaging adhesives. Everything I do has to be able to be undone,
Mm-hmm.
and it has to be done in such a way that it's going to protect your art. So I use, the UV glass and all acid-free materials. So, and, special adhesives so that it doesn't change the color. Supposedly, like we guarantee our work for 75 years. I definitely will redo something if it starts to fall, like at no charge. Like
Mm-hmm.
I fix my own work and work of other shops, and it's a normal thing for art to slip inside. Just and that's how you know it's done right. If it's it takes years for it to slip,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good thing because then it's not a permanent attachment to your art,
Mm-hmm.
like a permanent thing that's going to tear it or damage it. But yeah, like so when a standard an average person putting their own piece together, they might use masking tape or they might use scotch tape. Scotch tape's a little safer. Masking tape's going to dry up and it has acid in it. So, your images might not look as good for as long as if I was to do it.
Yeah, I was going to ask that because I know we have pieces that I know Mike is thinking of having fixed or redone that are important to him. So that's kind of cool to hear how that all works out because I had no idea that happens. But it doesn't
Yeah, like
happen right away. It
yeah,
takes
like
a long time.
one of the big things that we do that people just don't see is how we mount the art inside. We will build our own custom mounts to hold the art in place. We have to do a lot of trimming and cutting of tiny little pieces to that overlap the paper to hold it underneath the mat.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of fine detail work that kind of goes inside to make sure that the art is going to stay in place for as long as possible and still be protected.
So what other than memorabilia, what's the weirdest thing that you've ever had to frame?
The Dublin shop I worked at framed a bagel, and that was pretty weird. It was a gigantic, like, I think a bakery made it as a joke. It might have been like Bagel Brothers or somebody.
Oh, that's funny.
And I dealt with a couple of phone calls from that shop about how to do it, and we kind of discussed, and it never recommend framing anything edible or anything that was alive at one point.
No, I imagine that's really gross after a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. So the bagel, they got it done and they spray sealed it, but still bugs got inside. And within
Oh,
a year or so, they had to try to clean it out again.
ugh.
Um, I saw pictures of it, but I didn't actually get to work on that in person. But like that's one thing I never would try to do is to try to preserve food that way.
Yeah. Now, can you do
Um,
flowers? Are flowers a different story or?
if they're preserved properly when they get to us, yes,
Hmm.
but they still will fall apart. There's not a lot you can do. I had to dry some roses for a customer once, and that's not something we really offer, but just they came in not dried, so I had to figure out how to do all that. It turned out well. A lot of the rose petals did fall off, but I kind of scattered them in the bottom of the frame. It was a shadow box
Hmm.
to make it look like they were supposed to be down there.
Haha, very fancy. Nice work,
Yeah,
Jeremy. Very cool.
it'll look good.
Yeah. Well, I do appreciate the work that you did with our concert poster that we had framed
Yeah,
last summer. That was so nice. And it is so much, you don't think about framing things. It's not something I think about a lot.
yeah,
So at first I didn't care one way or the other if we got it framed, but then after I saw it finished, it just makes it so much better. It looks so much better in a nice frame and matted, and it just taking the time to do that just gives it that extra pop on the wall. So it's
yeah,
really nice.
yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
There's a weird thing. I don't have actually anything framed in my room or in my house. I like raw canvas, and I'll buy art from like the kids that work with me that will do some paintings.
Hmm.
Or if I see something at like a thrift store, I'll
Yeah.
buy it if I like it, and I'll just if they come with a frame, I'll strip the frame off. I kind of enjoy that raw canvas look on the wall.
That's really funny. It's like I see enough frames all day long. I'd rather not
Maybe
see it
that's
at
it.
home.
Yeah,
No more. I'm done with frames by the time I come home. That's, oh my gosh. So what is it about framing that you love the most about the work?
it is a daily puzzle. Like every time somebody walks up, it's a completely different piece. It's a different backstory, and it's a new puzzle to figure out how to put this into a frame and make it look good. And it's different every day. It's makes it pretty exciting. Like you don't know what's going to come up to the counter,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I bet that would be kind of exciting. And the fact that when you can present a finished piece that you're proud of to your customers and they look at it and love it, I imagine that feels pretty good too.
Yeah, and like seeing a piece that another framer took, like an order that they took, and unwrapping that for a customer and seeing it for the first time because they had done it, front to back. It's always awesome to see that kind of work come out of my shop, even when I don't touch it,
Hmm.
and it's surprising. And I just enjoy seeing that, a nice product, I guess, going out.
Yeah.
Well
No.
designed, put together really well.
Yeah. No doubt. That's pretty cool. So, you're not only a framer. There you have a lot of cool activities and things that you do, but you've also gotten into something else recently that I think is pretty cool and I've never heard of before. You are getting into lock picking. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. All right, so yeah, I've been in the lock picking for a while, but I just started making my own picks just kind of out of boredom. I don't just trying to
Because you
find
have
something to
nothing
do.
else to do with your time. I'll
I
just
don't
make
know.
picks.
Yeah, so yeah, I was, I it was in 2003, I was in New York for a hacker convention. My brother worked for a computer software firm, so he was sent there to kind of see what these computer hackers were kind of doing, I guess. And I tagged along because I kind of liked the art scene that was involved when I started looking at what was going on there when he asked if I wanted to go.
Hmm.
And like while we were there, like my thing was just seeing the graffiti art that they had. Like they had like amazing art shows as part of this. I think it was called Hackers on Planet Earth or a Hope Conference. And it had, movies and music and some live music and just amazing art show of like graffiti art. But while I was there checking that stuff out, I found a lockpicking competition and just that they had, and I was just watching and just completely fascinated to watch these guys just pop these locks open super fast and had no idea that was a real thing.
I had no
Um,
idea that that was a thing either. So how does this
I know.
competition work? Do they just like go down the line and pick locks as fast as they can? Is that how it works?
Well, there they had a lock and a vise, and people were walking up and being timed on picking it. And somebody was, I don't remember if there was somebody like narrating over a loudspeaker or if I was just standing next to somebody that was explaining it to me. But like somebody was saying, like, this is one of the hardest locks in the world. And the guy just walked up and popped it open, and it felt like, 10, 15 seconds. So
It's like the Houdini of lock pickers.
so my mind was blown, and I ended up talking to somebody for a while there who was in the competition, and he gave me my first couple of picks and a little practice lock, and I probably spent a good 6 months before I figured out how to open it. And once I felt comfortable, I introduced one of my backpacking buddies to it, and we would take a couple of locks with us when we go backpacking and sit around the campfire and just pick locks occasionally, or sit in his living room and pick locks while we talked. So that just kind of became a background thing for me. And I would just buy a lock at like a thrift store and pick it, and or buy one from a flea market, or a handful of them like chained together with no keys, and I'd take them home and spend some time picking them, and then I'd pass them on to somebody else who wanted to pick them.
That's really funny. Now, are locks that different that it takes a certain skill to be able to unlock each one, or are
Oh,
locks
it
built
is.
differently?
They're all built a little differently, and even if you buy say the same brand master lock, a pack of
Hmm.
four, they're all going to feel a little different when you pick them. It's yeah, it's weird and fascinating, and just trying to imagine what's going on inside that lock as you're touching each one of those pins, trying to get them in the right position. It's more of a meditation for me, and it kind of helps me calm down, I guess. I'm a fairly hyper person, and I'm always moving, so it's
Yeah.
one of those things that kind of gets me to sit still and be one with something for a bit.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like working on a logic problem of sorts, but it's with your
Yeah.
hands or something like, like that. So that's really fascinating. I had no idea that it was a thing. Like you could go and learn about lock picking. So that's pretty
Yeah,
fascinating.
so one of my favorite things to do is go to a park that has one of those bridges where people clamp on locks on the fence or on the
Yes.
railing of the
Mm-hmm.
bridge,
Yep.
and finding some of the older ones that are rusted or whatever, and try to pick those and remove them from the bridge. There are times when, those bridges get so, or the fences get so weighed down
Yeah.
that some of the parks will actually have little events where they'll invite people out to pick. Not a lot around here, but I've
Mm-hmm.
gone to a couple of those events in the past, one in DC. It was a lot of fun.
Oh wow. You should go to Paris, that bridge where they put
I they From what I understand, they do have an event there in Paris for that bridge,
Do
the
they
Lovelock Bridge.
really? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
But one of the things, like, you can buy little tags. So at Moonville, or the Moonville Tunnel,
Oh yeah.
there is a bridge there, where people will clip locks onto. And one of the things I kind of like to do is go there, pick those locks, put up my own little tag on that says I picked it, and then lock it back on the fence.
Oh wow. That's that's so funny. Yeah, I've been to Moonville. I
Yeah,
know where that is. That's cool. Awesome. Are there like lock picking like conventions around here or anything like in Central
I
Ohio or?
so I'm not big into Facebook or anything.
Hmm.
I've been to one up in Michigan, and I know they have them in Texas. And there was a group in DC, that was kind of part of the New York thing when I was there.
Hmm.
So there are groups around. I don't know really if there's anything here in Columbus.
Yeah.
Just I travel so much that, on my backpacking trips, I'll look and see if something's going on in whatever area I'm going to, and
Yeah.
I'll try to swing by if I can.
It's it's like geocaching but lock picking kind of. I don't
Oh,
know. It's like going on
geocaching was fun. Yeah.
Have you done that? I want to do that
I
so bad.
I did with my buddy's daughter when she was younger. She really enjoyed geocaching. We'd find little toys and drop little toys off
Yeah,
as we traveled around.
some of them are pretty intricate. I've seen on Instagram, I think, like intricate puzzles to get inside some of those.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. They when my daughter was in Girl Scouts, there was a geocaching badge. We never went for it. I think we we lost out. We should have. But I that's pretty cool. I would love to do geocaching. I love
Yeah,
puzzles.
it's good. I believe it still has a good scene too.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done it in a while,
Yeah.
long while.
Very
I
cool.
still see, I will stumble across those geocaches by accident now, especially at high banks. Like the Girl Scouts tend to use like stumps and stuff at high banks. And
Yeah.
because I just go and take photos, I'm always like just wandering just off trail looking for something interesting to take a picture of. And I
Mm-hmm.
stumble across those quite a bit.
That's pretty funny. Now with geocaching, you're supposed to not take, or do you not take what's in it, or do you leave something when you
Um,
do it?
it depends. I think they each have like their own rules, but the ones that I did with Grace, we were taking something and leaving something.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of swapping. And then some of them had a log and you would write that you were there.
Yeah, I know. That's so much fun. I know you seem like the kind of person who loves puzzles and just likes all that kind of. My dad was
Yeah.
always a big outdoorsy guy too, and I see a lot of similarities because we always used to go hiking. We always used to do those kind of things. I used to help him with like woodworking a little bit sometimes. And
Yeah.
you have a lot of things that overlap that you love to do. And I just find it all fascinating.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I like to build things and especially under, how you put it, under duress.
Hmm.
I find that I'm most creative with a limited budget and limited time, and it irritates me, but I find that like I create the coolest things that way.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm uncomfortable and I'm broke and I have to make something work, usually it works out pretty good.
Yeah.
It's it just puts me in a bad mood to be doing it that way.
Now, have you ever had to be creative when you're building a frame, like with your wood choices or with some stuff like
Yeah,
that?
I do quite a bit, and I think that's why because I think that's why I'm good at my job is because I do that same kind of thing outside of it. That's it's a lot more troubleshooting or problem solving. Like no order is really just simple and straightforward. There's always something a little adjustment you need to make.
Hmm.
And back in the day, I used to have to kind of create my own mat board colors from mat board and spray paint.
Oh,
Um,
wow. That would be
yeah,
difficult to like match colors and things, I would think with spray paint.
yeah, it was harder to get materials, and um, there were times where just in a pinch you had to get something done, and you just had to figure out how to make this one yellow mat board pink or whatever. So, you know,
And you also, along with all the other things that you also like to go camping and take your telescope with you, right? When you go
oh
camping?
yeah, that's new.
Mm-hmm.
I got my telescope last fall specifically for this past eclipse, and I really didn't figure it out until about a month before the eclipse. It took me a lot of practice and a lot of taking blurry pictures of the moon before I figured it all out. But yeah, so I plan on using that telescope quite a bit now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
I've always loved staring up at the night sky while camping,
Mhm.
and just never thought that I would end up with something like telescopes felt beyond reach for me. They just seemed complicated, until I stumbled across this smart telescope. It's a pretty cool device.
Yeah, I saw your eclipse picture and it was wonderful. It was beautiful. You captured it so well. Have you ever been able to go someplace like the Grand Canyon and capture that night sky? Cuz that is on my bucket list.
So Grand Canyon is on my bucket list, but I've never been west of the Mississippi.
Mm.
So I plan on doing that soon. I've spent most of my time like going towards the Appalachian Trail,
Mhm.
hiking sections of it off and on for, I don't know, 12 years. Now I'm starting to move north towards Michigan and the Upper Peninsula. I'll be like vacationing up there this summer. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping to get some really cool pictures up there of the night sky and shooting stars, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
Whatever
are you going to be north enough to see the northern lights?
on a good night, I will be. So I'll be in the Keweenaw Peninsula at the very tip of it in Copper Harbor. So it's the northernmost point of Michigan,
Mhm.
right on Superior. So hopefully, I don't know enough yet, and I haven't done enough research to know whether I'll really be able to see them well or not.
Yeah, that would be cool if you do. I want to see that picture, definitely.
Yeah, my other new thing is my drone. I want to get like really good sunset, sunrise pictures off on Lake Superior. So,
hmm
and that's I got it a couple years ago and then broke it, and just this past month I was able to get it fixed. I'm not skilled with it, but I have taken a couple of decent pictures with it. So,
Yeah, I imagine that takes some practice with the drones.
yeah, yeah, a lot more than I expected.
Yeah.
I got it when I broke my foot and was laid up, and I'd fly it out my bedroom window and over the neighborhood and take pictures so I could see what was going on.
Were there any angry neighbors or like, what's that?
No, you know what? Not at all. It was during the summer.
hmm
The kids helped me out, like in the neighborhood, helped me out quite a bit because when I would crash it, they'd get it for me and then drop it in through my window. So that I replace a couple of propellers and then fly it out again. So
I'm sure they enjoyed it. It was probably a fun time
yeah.
for them.
Yeah, one would follow it around with his bike, staring at the sky, following my drone, and as soon as it would like get caught up in something, he'd bring it back to me.
That's pretty good. Well, you have
Yeah,
a built-in little assistant there to help you out.
y- yeah.
So what else are you into, Jeremy? This is all very cool stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Like, I love art.
Kind of it.
Um,
It's
I
like,
make stuff, and I camp, and then I blend it all together as much as possible. Like a lot of my photography is of weird stuff in the woods, trees that look like they have faces, or I'll make little acorn people and leave them for people to find on the trails. I like
aw.
building little things like that, or leaving notes and moss for people out of like sticks and leaves. I don't know. It's just I like I like ephemeral art. It's
Mm.
temporary, it looks pretty, and it's gonna be gone when the weather changes, kind of a thing.
Oh, yeah, I get that. That would be
Yeah.
so magical if I was a kid and walking through the woods and like seeing a little acorn person.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
I had a friend that made those little things and stuck them around a park that I would go to, and I'd see him and take a picture, and then I realized she was making them, and I started kind of making them myself. They're fun little cute things that you could just stumble across by accident, like a little acorn fairy in a tree, and you don't notice it if you walk by unless just something about it catches your eye, and then
hmm
it's a little scene of this thing like looking at something or doing something. It's kind of fun to create. There's actually a guy on YouTube that takes photographs. He has, I think he calls them acorn people. I'm not sure.
Oh, I'll have to look that up.
But yeah, there is a guy that does it professionally and kind of like takes really nice photos of them.
hmm
Has them like feeding squirrels out of their hands. It's really cool. It's really moving to see, like a chipmunk steal an acorn from an acorn little fairy holding it out to him.
Yeah. Have you ever run into any bears while you're hiking?
No.
No.
Uh, no, I did see when I was young, I saw a couple of cubs and a mama bear eating KFC off of a picnic table.
Oh gosh.
And my only other run-in with a bear was at a state park in southern Ohio called Tar Hollow
Oh
back
yeah,
in
that's
two.
where I'm from. I'm from down in
Oh,
there.
okay.
hmm
Yeah, so in 2000, I saw a bear crossing the road inside the park and I was shocked to see it, a
Yeah.
brown bear or
Yeah.
a black bear.
That is kind of wild down in there to see where we used to. I think you could see bobcats sometimes down there, but I don't remember my dad ever seeing bears down there. So that's pretty
Yeah.
wild.
So I've seen bobcat tracks. I've
hmm
never seen one in person.
Yeah. Yeah, they're kind of elusive. But they are there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
I worry when I hike with my dog whether
Mm,
something's going to be,
yeah.
especially like I've seen bobcat tracks up at Mohican State Park,
hmm
and I'm nervous to hike with her there just because the underbrush is thick in spots, and you don't know if something's going to jump out. My dog's small, so she's a meal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you do any kayaking or canoeing or anything?
Oh yeah,
Do you?
I just started kayaking during the pandemic,
Hmm.
and that's been a blast. And that's I was collecting feathers for a while from the bodies of water that I would kayak in, and that was kind of a fun thing to hunt for and to use in art.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, that would be cool.
yeah, I've done a couple of long kayak trips, like down the Miami River,
I've done that. I've
and
done canoeing trips down the Miami River before, down by Fort Ancient down in there by
yeah,
Cincinnati.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we went through there. I don't know exactly where we started, but it was a 2-night trip down to Miami, and
Hmm.
it was a blast. I think we camped on an island outside Fort Ancient.
I think we did when I was little, we did that same trip. It was great because on the first night, it was awesome. We had a campfire and they had a Native American speaker and he told stories, Native American stories. It was awesome. I remember that so
Oh, that
well.
would be really cool.
Yes, it was a favorite memory. I've written about that on with my writing and stuff because that was a pretty memorable trip.
One of my favorites is actually going down the Darby,
Mhm.
from Darby to Circleville.
Mhm.
It's a 2-day trip, I think. We stopped and camped along the way at least, and it's amazing to know that you're in the middle of like near the city,
Mhm.
and you can't tell. It's just you. It's a quiet river. It's kind of small. Lots of cool things to see, and you don't see any other people. You don't hear any other people unless you're going like through part of the Darby Park that that there's a trail that runs along the river. But like once you get past that, it feels like it's just wilderness, and you see eagles and all kinds of crazy critters and animals and owls, and it's just a blast,
Yeah,
and it's so mellow.
yeah. Yeah, I think Ohio is uniquely placed because we have all these great rivers and waterways that, there's a lot of things you can do with camping and hiking and
Mhm.
canoeing and kayaking. And you're right, where you're still maybe a day's drive from a major city, but then you've got access to all of that wilderness too. So it is very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And seeing some of the litter is also eye-opening too in
Mhm.
sections.
Yep.
The amount of tires that are in our waterways and just shopping carts, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've
It
seen
hurts
some.
to see,
Yeah.
opens your eyes, makes you think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I enjoy, I wish I didn't have to see that kind of stuff, but it does help me keep that focus, make sure that, I take care of the environment as much as I can.
Yep. You leave with what you bring in. That's always
Yep.
the scouting way that's how I always learned. You don't leave anything.
Yeah, and that's how I backpack too. So
Mhm. Yep. Leave no trace.
yeah,
Do
you got
you
to be responsible if you're going to use all that.
That's right. Exactly. Do you do any work with environmental stuff or you just kind of do it on your own when you see it and
I do it on my own. I don't really do anything. I don't really have the time
yeah.
outside of work.
Yeah.
My schedule is so crazy. It's hard for me to like I don't know what I'm working,
Mhm.
2 weeks from now. Like I could be 9 to 5 all the way through, or it could be one of the close all the way through, or a mix of those.
I imagine when you're not working, I can understand why you'd want to get away.
Yeah.
It's hard work. I know when I've come in to see you, you're just working away.
Yeah.
Busy, busy, busy. Lots to do.
Yeah, and you have to be able to switch gears super fast. Like
Mhm.
have your head buried into a really big order and then immediately run up front and run register for a bit.
Yeah,
It can be taxing
that is.
just switching those gears that quick.
Yeah. Oh, that kind of work, being on your feet all day is tiring anyway. So when you're extra busy and have to run ragged around, it
Yeah.
makes it doubly hard.
My hobbies help make that easier though, because I walk every day, and
Yeah.
and I try to hike somewhere every day at least a little bit. So I'm always on my feet.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah.
There's nothing like being outside or, being in nature. I think people discount that a lot, but it is meditative and it's kind of cathartic to step away from, the hustle and bustle of life and just kind of, go into nature and
Yeah.
be still and silent for a while. I find solace in that.
And not have a yeah, and I like to not have a screen, or I'll put my phone away, and I don't really listen to music or anything when I'm hiking. It's pretty much just me and Bella, and listening to the birds and kind of just enjoying the moment. It's hard to do, any other time.
Yeah. I think you have an amazing array of hobbies and the work you do. I'm always amazed by the kinds of frames that I see you guys put together. The work is wonderful. Mike always bugs you about making videos, about how you do it. And I think it'd
Yeah.
probably be great because you would have, well, unfortunately, even more business if people knew where to find you. But and just the outdoors kind of stuff that you do and the lock picking, I just love it. It's just all intertwined. You're right. It's all intertwined and it all meshes together. And it's just, I think it's pretty fascinating. So I appreciate you talking to me.
Oh, no, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. So, on that note, I will remind everyone you can follow me at mybigfatjunkdrawer.com. If you want to talk junk drawer like Jeremy did today, you can email me at mybigfatjunkdrawer@gmail.com. Stay tuned for next week. Subscribe, like all that social media rot, and we will see you next time. Bye.